The old house creaked. Wind howled. The night was dark and stormy, with the moon occasionally peeking through the thick clouds. The ancient trees surrounding the house swayed and groaned, their branches scratching against the windows like skeletal fingers. Rain lashed against the windows, creating a rhythmic yet unsettling sound. The storm outside seemed relentless, as if nature itself was trying to warn anyone who dared to enter the house. Inside, 10-year-old Billy stared at his reflection in the antique mirror. The mirror, with its ornate Victorian frame, had always fascinated him. But tonight, it felt different. The dim light from the flickering candle cast eerie shadows on the walls, making the room feel even colder. He shivered. It felt cold, colder than he had ever felt before. The chill seemed to seep into his bones, making him feel as if he was being watched by unseen eyes. Colder than the storm raging outside. His reflection smiled. Billy didn't. The smile was not his own. It was sinister, almost mocking. He felt a shiver run down his spine as he realized that the reflection was not just a trick of the light. The smiling boy in the mirror reached out his hand. A bony white hand. Billy stumbled back. Terror choked his throat. His reflection was alive. The hand seemed to stretch out from the glass, reaching for him, as if trying to pull him into the mirror's dark depths. The hand pulled back into the mirror. The reflection was gone. Billy was alone again. Or was he? The room felt even colder now, and the silence was deafening. He could still feel the presence of the boy in the mirror, lurking just beyond the glass, waiting for the right moment to return. Billy's heart raced as he backed away from the mirror, his eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of movement. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside, the true terror was just beginning. The antique mirror had been delivered that morning, a gift from a distant relative. No one knew much about the relative, or the mirror. The mirror was tall and ornate. Its silver was tarnished, making it hard to see. The family gathered around, their reflections distorted and strange. Billy's mom read the note attached to the mirror. A family heirloom, it read. May it bring you joy, but beware its gaze. Her brow furrowed. What a strange message. Strange things began to happen after the mirror arrived. It was an antique, with an ornate frame that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. The family had found it at an old estate sale, and it seemed like a perfect addition to their home. Little did they know, it carried a dark history. Whispers seemed to follow them from room to room. At first, they thought it was just the wind, or perhaps their imagination playing tricks on them. But the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and they seemed to be calling out names, familiar yet distant. Shadows danced in the mirror's reflection. They twisted and turned, forming shapes that were almost human. The family tried to ignore it, but the shadows became more pronounced, more menacing, as if they were trying to break free from the glass. Billy's older sister, Sarah, saw figures lurking in the mirror's depths. She was the first to notice the faces, pale and ghostly, staring back at her. They seemed to be trapped, pleading for help, their eyes filled with sorrow and despair. She swore she heard her name whispered. It was a soft, almost gentle voice, but it sent chills down her spine. She tried to tell her parents, but they brushed it off, thinking it was just her imagination. Their parents dismissed it as an overactive imagination. They had always been skeptical of the supernatural, believing only in what they could see and touch. But the events that followed would challenge their disbelief. One night, the grandfather clock chimed midnight. The sound echoed through the house, a haunting reminder of the passage of time. It was then that the true horror began to unfold. A cold wind swept through the house. The temperature dropped suddenly, and the air felt thick with an unseen presence. The mirror glowed with an eerie light, casting long shadows on the walls. An unnatural light emanated from its surface. It pulsed and flickered, as if alive, and the whispers grew louder, more frantic. The family could no longer deny the truth. From then on, no one doubted. The mirror was cursed. It held the spirits of the past, trapped and tormented, and it had chosen their home as its new prison. The family knew they had to find a way to break the curse, or risk being consumed by the darkness within. The Harringtons weren't strangers to the strange and unusual. Their family had a long history with the supernatural. Their great-aunt had claimed to see ghosts. Their grandfather had a collection of strange and eerie artifacts. Now the mirror was the latest chapter in their family's spooky story. Billy's parents started to believe. The whispers, the shadows, the cold spots in the house. They couldn't ignore it any longer. The mirror was affecting them all. One night, Billy woke up to a terrifying sight. The mirror was glowing brighter than ever. A face stared out from the glass. It was pale and gaunt, with eyes filled with malice. Billy screamed. His parents rushed in, but the face in the mirror was gone. The mirror was just a mirror again. They thought Billy was having a nightmare. But Billy knew the truth. He had seen the face in the mirror, and it had seen him. Section 6. Trapped in the mirror world. Sarah became the mirror's next victim. She was drawn to its hypnotic surface. Lost in its depths, she felt a cold hand reach out and pull her in. She tumbled through darkness. When she opened her eyes, she found herself trapped. She was in a world that mirrored her own, but twisted and sinister. Her reflection stood before her, grinning wickedly. "You can't escape," it hissed. "You're mine now." Section 7. The Ritual. In the heart of the old, creaky house, shadows danced on the walls, cast by the flickering candlelight. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards. Billy knew he had to help his sister. His heart pounded in his chest, but his resolve was unwavering. He couldn't let fear paralyze him now. He remembered a story his grandfather used to tell. It was a tale filled with mystery and danger, one that had always fascinated and frightened him as a child. A story about a ritual. This ritual was said to have the power to break the most sinister of curses, but it came with great risk. A way to break the mirror's curse. The mirror, an ancient artifact, held a dark secret. It had trapped many souls over the centuries, and now it had ensnared his sister, Sarah. He found his grandfather's old journal. The ritual was dangerous. The pages were yellowed with age, filled with cryptic symbols and detailed instructions. Each step had to be followed precisely. One mistake, and he could be trapped too. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, but he couldn't let it deter him. He had to focus, but he had to try. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Sarah forever. His determination grew stronger with each passing moment. He had to save Sarah. Her frightened face flashed in his mind, and he knew he couldn't let her down. She was counting on him. He gathered the items: a silver candlestick, a white rose, and a mirror shard. Each item had a specific purpose in the ritual, and he handled them with care. He had to be quick. Time was running out, and the longer he waited, the stronger the curse would become. He moved with a sense of urgency, his hands trembling slightly. He had to be brave. Courage was his only ally in this dark and foreboding place. With a deep breath, he steeled himself for the task ahead. The fate of his sister, and perhaps his own, hung in the balance. Section 8. Free at last? Billy performed the ritual. He chanted the words, his voice trembling. The mirror shook violently. The air crackled with energy. A blinding light filled the room. When it faded, Sarah was back. She collapsed into Billy's arms, sobbing. The mirror lay in pieces on the floor. Was it over? Their parents were relieved. They had their children back. They decided to forget about the mirror. But some things can't be forgotten. Section 9. The Mirror's Gaze. The Harringtons tried to move on, but the mirror's curse left its mark. Sarah still had nightmares about the mirror world. Billy couldn't look in a mirror without remembering the face he had seen. And sometimes, in the dead of night, they thought they saw a faint glow. The mirror was gone, but not forgotten. Its gaze lingered, a constant reminder of the terror it had brought.